everybody, welcome to the Comic and Movie Show. My name is Deshaun, and today I'm here to review Stranger Things Season 4 Part 1. Now, I am still confused if this is technically the last season still. Is this still the last season, or is there going to be a Season 5? Or is Part 2 just going to be the second half of the final season? I have been a bit confused about that, so someone comment below and let me know. Is this Season 4 split into two parts? Is this the final season? Or is this just they decided to split the fourth season up into two parts and there is another season? Because I know the Duffer Brothers have pretty much said that they didn't play it like that it's coming to an end. It's either this or next, or there's another season. But I know there's a lot more coming. Because I know they said they were going to wrap this up. They're going to let this carry out. To be perfectly honest, they could always come back to it. I don't know. It depends on how they decide to go about ending it. But, anywho, Stranger Things Season 4 Part 1. Now, I will try to keep... I'm not going to spoil anything. This is one of the biggest shows in the world. Stranger Things is, in my opinion, still the biggest show on Netflix. I mean, the numbers say otherwise, since it's pretty much the most watched. I think they said something along the lines of it's the most watched show of of English language or something like that. Like some like very specific thing like that. But it's pretty much the most watched show on Netflix. It's the show that elevated because for a long time in the TV world, at least in the serialized storytelling frame, it was really HBO. You know, HBO were the only ones really doing like big stories, like big, huge stories that were like, you know, that had some cultural relevance that like people talked about. Yeah, like The Wire, The Sopranos, and stuff like that. Like HBO had some real stuff, you know, that really had an impact. That were memorable. Had great performances that had actual effect on pop culture. And Netflix had two of those shows. One of those shows, you know, kind of House of Cards, which ironically that show kind of tumbled like a House of Cards. But one of those shows, House of Cards, which I still haven't watched, and I feel kind of bad about because like it's weird. Because now it's weird to go back and watch it with Spacey, and then I don't know. But maybe one day I will watch House of Cards. The other one was Stranger Things. It's the flagship show of Netflix. Really, it really is. It's the flagship show of Netflix. They introduced they did something that I never thought would do, and they brought in, they had all of these talented child actors, which is something that you don't see too often. A lot of times kid actors are annoying as fuck, but they weren't here. It was set in the 80s, which was a period that, that had just started being mined for nostalgia. And you can almost pinpoint Stranger Things as the point where 80s movies that were made in the 80s and stuff started becoming nostalgic and being like, oh, I miss those days. And it was one of the first times you saw a show use nostalgia that way. And then Lord knows how much the fucking Stranger Things guys did for the Dungeons and Dragons community. Holy shit. D&D. I don't know what the D&D numbers were before Stranger Things, but after, out of this world. I say all that to say that this season in particular may be, so far, the best one. First of all, it's a bit darker. First of all, I'm just going to start off the top kind of talking about the story. It takes place 6 months after the events that, all that shit that happened at the mall with the giant demogorgon, with the giant mind flare and everything and all the deaths and whatnot. It takes place 6 months after that. I believe, and if you remember at the end of season 3, Eleven and Joyce and her kids, they decided to move to California to get away, get a fresh start. They moved to California. And, for the first time ever, the group has been divided. Eleven's way over there. She's trying to make it work, but, she's having trouble. They're all having trouble. They're all having trouble. Meanwhile, Mike and Dustin and, Lucas are still back at home. They're trying to make it work. Because the first couple of episodes, at least the first episode, it's just them dealing with the aftermath of not only what's happened, but how much has changed. And just them being normal and them dealing with normal people problems. obvious, them just dealing with normal people problems, relationships and whatnot, and high school and the bullying and all of that stuff. Meanwhile, but there's a lot going on in this show. And I remember when like, about near episode 3, I was like, dude, there's a lot happening. First of all, they introduce more characters. They introduce more characters on top of the characters, like, that we're focused on, which is a lot, but it's okay. They do a good job balancing it. They introduce, this character named Eddie, who kind of becomes, once they get to high school, because now all of them are in high school, he's like this huge super nerd that, that Lucas and Dustin and them and the boys look up to. And they really look up to him, and they really see him as like, he's like the nerd they want to be. He's a guitar player. He's a huge D&D guy. He's their DM. Like, he's their dungeon master. He is like a really interesting character. Really interesting dude. They also introduce a couple people. But there's also something going on with Max. Max is still dealing with their own shit. Dealing with the death of her brother and like her trying to cope with that. And then while you got all that going on, meanwhile, you got the Hopper story. Which, if you recall, Hopper was supposedly died at the end of season 3. Turns out, I mean, we know he didn't. They put out something, I believe, that really literally showed him with his head shaved in a wintry environment that we assume is Russia. Because as we know, essentially, Russia and the US were both experimenting with the same shit at the same time. Go figure, it's the 80s. And something went wrong. Let's put it that way. They were both experimenting with the same shit. And Hopper got captured, ended up in a Russian prison. And somehow, by hook or by crook, he managed to find a way to get a message to Joyce. Now, Joyce, and I can't remember his name with the glasses, are on their own side mission. There's a whole subplot, like this whole other subplot, with them having to get to Russia and trying to save Hopper and all of that. So that's happening. That's a way that has nothing to do with all the other stuff that's going on. Meanwhile, we have this new villain introduced. This new villain who I won't spoil anything about him because there's a lot to spoil, who they just kind of, I can't remember the name they give him, like Vishnu or something like that. It's some kind of Dungeons and Dragons name. I'm just calling him Vishnu, whatever. They call him that. It's not what he is. It turns out he's something else, but I kind of, and I'm not going to lie, I kind of got the twist about episode 4, about episode 3 or 4. I knew exactly what he was. Because it was so odd what he was doing. Because most of the monsters just sneak through or they try to possess someone. But it was just very curious that this one is like doing some Freddy Krueger shit. Invading people's minds, making them see shit, making them hallucinate. And it was crazy what was happening. Like, literally, this villain may be the best one because there's so much like Freddy Krueger vibes with him. In terms of how he's killing these people, how he's going after them and just brutally mangling their bodies. Meanwhile, apparently, stuff maybe I need to go back and watch the show, but I thought the government knew about the experiments and the stuff that was happening in Hawkins. Turns out, maybe they don't, because the U.S. government shows up, or some dude who seems like he's the representative of the U.S. government shows up, and he's wildly misinformed, so he's hunting 11, thinking she's responsible for these deaths, and he's hunting 11, and there's this, and he's hunting 11. 11 doesn't have her powers anymore. There's a lot going on in this show, and I don't want to spoil, like I said, I don't want to get into the details and nitty gritty, but just know, there's a lot. This is the most dense season. Because other seasons have touched on the lore, on the powers of 11, on other students, on the whole, on the upside down. But they really dig in this season. It's really heavy with the lore. And so I don't know how many people are going to love that bit, but it's all interesting. It's all character progression, even though some of the characters still aren't communicating. There are a couple nitpicks and problems I have. One being the communication with the characters, because it does feel like quite often there are many problems that could be solved if characters just communicate, but that's a problem in a lot of things. Also, they really are having a hard time justifying why no one will just leave this town. Like why they wouldn't just leave this town. These things continue to happen, and it just starts to become like, I have a feeling this show's gonna end like Buffy. I don't know if you guys ever watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but when Buffy the Vampire Slayer came to an end, the entire town she was in just crumbled, and it was just gone. The whole town was gone. You know, just sunk in and was gone. And I was like, you know, I feel like that's what's gonna happen here. Because it just feels like, dude, like, if you guys stay in this town, it's just gonna be ridiculous. Because stuff is literally happening here. On top of the lack of communication, there are also, like I said, there are also some common tropes that they play up. Some obvious tropes that they play up, but they do them well. There's a lot of kind of obvious tropes and whatnot in this, at least in this season. And, like, nothing really surprised me. Like, not really, but everything is so well done. Everyone's so doing such a great job of acting. There's a weird thing going on with Will, which I don't want to point out. Some other people might point it out, where he's a very interesting character. They kind of leave it ambiguous of like, what's going on with Will? Like, who knows? But like I said, there's a lot going on, and this is funny because Mike, the character of Mike, has sort of taken a back seat so far. Honestly, Dustin's the MVP. He's always been the most entertaining of all the kid characters, but it's just becoming more and more abundant that like he really is the guy. It's like in terms of acting, or in terms of stars, it's like, you know, Millie Bobby Brown, you know, as 11. You know, maybe Hopper, Hopper, and this kid playing Dustin. I can't remember his name all the time, man, but he is so entertaining. He is still so entertaining. Is there something about him that's just like, I know a kid like this, and I would be friends with this kid. I'd be annoyed by him. I'd be irritated by him, but we'd still be buds. We'd still be friends. And there's something about him that I just love his character. He's just such a fun character. Also, Lucas actually had an interesting little arc going on, especially since him and Max are, you know, have something going on. Like, I love that everyone had something. Everyone has something. Kinda. Mike something is a little nitpicky that he won't, I don't know, that Mike something is a little smaller. I'd probably say that I'd probably say that Henderson's, new best friend she's got a minute thing going on too. But overall, everyone's got something going on. They keep introducing new characters, introducing new environments. All the kids are growing up so fast, man. It's just like, dude, they're growing like weeds. Like, it feels like they're gonna, like, if I were them, the Duffer Brothers, I'd wait like 11, 12 years, bring them all back, do it all over again, you know? But anyways, I would give Stranger Things Season 4 Part 1 a 9 out of 10. I loved it. I had such a great time with it. It took me a while to get around to watching it, but once I started going, I was going. And, like, these are some long episodes. These gotta be the longest episodes I've ever seen a show have. The shortest episode is like an hour and 10 minutes. And it's not like, oh, an hour with like 3 minutes of credit. Though it's like an hour with like 2 minutes of credits. It's like an hour and like 8 minutes, you know? I mean, I watched an episode, like the last episode was almost an hour and 50 minutes. It was almost 2 hours. The last episode was almost 2 hours. The first episode was like an hour and 25 minutes. I was like, these are some lengthy episodes, boy. Wow. I'm like, okay, you know? Now, I mean, it probably helps that, like, there's, like, the CGI. Like, there's a lot of CGI in it. But they can get away with a lot by not having a lot of CGI having to be, you know, all the time. But I digress. Stranger Things Season 4 Part 1. Have you seen it? Comment below and let me know. Thank you guys for joining the Comic Game Movie Show. Please like, subscribe, and comment below. Did you enjoy Stranger Things Season 4? Comment below. See you guys.